Hello everyone, greetings of the day. I am Sonu Bhatti and this video is about the prolonged era of darkness of British rule over India, which caused irreparable losses. For example, hampered the growth of manufacturing sector, agricultural sector, economic losses, cultural losses, population losses, and about many more aspects of Indian history. So let's get started. Did you have the slightest idea that India was the wealthiest nation in the world before the British included India? There was no population explosion and we had enough food for everyone. The agriculture was rich and trade with foreign lands was on a boost. Not just the money, with the rich and spiritual philosophical knowledge, we were the world leaders. All in all, India possessed everything to be called the Golden Bird. It won't be an exaggeration to say that India was the world's largest economy between 180 and 1080. Also, opposite to the situation of today when we share a mere 2% of the world state, our contribution to the global economy in 1500 AD was somewhere around 24.5%. That was equal to all of Europe's share. During the period when the Mughals ruled India, the country's income was 17.5 million pounds, which was greater than the entire treasury of Great Britain. While the rest of the world was practicing barter system, why are you there? We were the first one to develop money-based trade. Let's look at the following reports that reflects on the past richness of India. First is of course temples, Vitthal Swami and Nagarkot temples and so on. List is never ending in terms of temples in India. Nothing can be more magnificent than these temples by reason of quantity of gold and many jewels. Looting temple was the best way to earn money very quickly. Similar to our modern expression to strike oil. An idea of immense wealth could be gathered from the fact that when Sultan Mahmud Ghaznavi destroyed the far-famed Somnath temple, he found such immense wealth and astonishing diamonds confined in the single idol of Shiva that it was found quite impossible to calculate the value of that booty. This magnificent piece of ancient India's artifact was made up of 1050 kgs of gold and 230 kgs of precious stones. In 1999, it was estimated that this throne would have cost roughly 4.5 billion. Its construction cost was twice as much as of Taj Mahal. The throne was taken away by the Persian ruler Nadir Shah in 1739 as a war trophy. Kohinoor is 106 carats diamond and once was the largest diamond of the world. It got transferred at the hands of many Indian and Persian rulers. It was mounted on the peacock throne on the commands of Shah Jahan. In 1851, Queen Victoria got her hands around this diamond and the diamond is still in possession of British government. Economy flourished between 180 and 1080, making it the largest economy with a GDP value of $33.8 million, ahead of that of China's with $26.6 million in 1080. In 1500, it contributed 24.5% of world share and became second largest after China. With the coming of Mughals, its momentum of growth continued. In 1600s, India reached the peak with the income of 17.5 million pounds, even greater than the Britain's entire treasury worth 16 million pounds in 1800. With the advent of the rule of East India Company in 1700s, India's total share in world's GDP reduced to 3.8%. Mauryan ships sailed as far as Syria, Egypt and Greece. On this ground, the ancient India was a global trade hub. India was the first one to do away with traditional practices of barter system. It introduced various currencies. Early form of currency is said to be silver coins. There existed a form of early constitution in the Mauryan period where Chanakya laid down the principles of law, politics, defense and economy. Why India was known as Sone ki Chidiya? From Kohinoor to Kama Sutra, from agricultural land to mountains, India had it all. India was a country which had everything, from money to gold to animals to beauty. India was the wealthiest land in the ancient times. The major reason why India was named as Golden Bird, regarded as Sone ki Chidiya. Why? Because of its abundant raw materials and the availability of precious stones. In the 17th century, trade was done in the exchange of gold, coins and bars. The land of spices, cotton and iron weapons had a lot to offer. In the 17th century, India was a major exporter of textiles, spices, pearls, sugars and iron weapons. India did not need any import at all. The amount of money that India was making was unimaginable due to the accumulation of wealth as exports were greater than import. We all know that India is no more the Sone ki Chidiya because of a very simple fact that we were too lucky in terms of resources but highly unlucky in case of saving our nation. Almost every country invaded us to rule us, but while we were getting bruised and were fighting amongst each other, the resources were slowly and steadily diminishing. We are a land of diversity full of cultural heritage, rituals, languages, food, art, but we could not handle it. We are still fighting and fighting and fighting for our identities while we ignore the fact that this is our identity. The extent of British plunder makes the Kohinoor appear a small loss. The British caused irreparable losses to India in a number of sectors. Like a huge sponge, Britain soaked up the country's wealth and simultaneously ruined its industry, agriculture and education. They divided the country, thereby ensuring that India would never again be the dominant economic power it once was. But the loot of gold, silver is hardly enough to destroy an economy. For in the previous 7 centuries, the Islamic invaders from Arabia, Turkey, Central Asia, Afghanistan and Persia had raided India countless times, and yet India remained wealthy. Even during the reign of the most Muslim tyrants such as the Tughlaqs, Khaljis, Lodhis and Aurangzeb, the people of India's village continued in their age-old ways of economic production. This is because the Islamic invaders did not tamper with the village economy. It took the Britain's colonial wrecking machine to bring down India. India in the 18th century was a great manufacturing as well as a great agricultural country, and the products of the Indian loom supplied the markets of Asia and Europe. It is unfortunately true that the East India Company and the British Parliament, following the selfish commercial policy of 100 years ago, discouraged Indian manufacturers in the early years of British rule in order to encourage the rising of manufacturers of England. Their fixed policy, pursued during the last decades of the 18th century and the first decade of the 19th, was to make India subservient to the industries of Great Britain and to make the Indian people grow only raw products in order to supply material for the loom and manufactories of Great Britain. During the period of direct British rule from 1858 to 1947, official transfers of funds to the UK by the colonial government were called the home charges. They mainly represented debt services, pensions, India office expenses in the UK, purchases of military items and railway equipment. In the Tata Steel Works in 1921 to 22, the average salary of foreign supervisory staff was 13,527 a year, whereas Indian workers were paid only 240. These foreigners cost twice as much as in the US. India during the British rule was no different. The most savage Islamic invaders such as Timur and Mahmud Ghazni would be unable to match the efficiency of the British killing machine. For instance, after the First War for Independence in 1857, the British may have killed up to 10 million Indians in retaliation. Amresh Misra, a writer and historian, says British pursued a decade-long campaign to wipe out millions of people who dared to rise up against them. In 1943 to 44, Prime Minister Winston Churchill diverted India's food stocks to Europe, resulting in death of over 3 million people by British estimates alone. Indian estimate placed the number at up to 7 million. That's more than the Adolf Hitler's victim in Nazi Germany's gas chambers. It was a holocaust, one where millions disappeared. It was a necessary holocaust in the British view because they thought the only way to win was to destroy entire populations in towns and villages. It was simple and brutal. Indians who stood in their way were killed, but its scale has been kept a secret. One reason why India ranked ahead of China in 1700 of the past 2000 years was that the areas that constitute Pakistan and Bangladesh were part of India. The British sliced off 20% of India's best wheat and rice growing areas. In the early 1940s, Jawaharlal Nehru said that after independence, India would take its rightful place as a major world power. He was dead wrong. Due to the loss of important areas as Punjab and Sindh, independent India was born crippled at birth. The cultural loss is irreplaceable. The Victoria and Albert Museum in London holds the largest collection of over 40,000 items of Indian art treasures outside the subcontinent. To this, the British had planned to add no less than the pieces of Taj Mahal. India's universities and gurukuls were the tutors to the world. They attracted foreign students in huge numbers, although nearly all of them, such as Nalanda University, were destroyed by Islamic conquerors. Before the coming of the British, the country's schooling system was continued as before. The British dismantled this egalitarian education system by destroying the guilds that financed these schools. Then they replaced it with a joke. According to Madison, the education system which developed was a very pale reflection of that in the UK. 3 universities were set up in 1857 in Calcutta, Madras and Bombay, but they were examining bodies and did no teaching. Shashi Tharoor says that how do you put a price on the lakhs of people who lost their lives in many famines that the British deliberately caused? People have calculated reparation amount like $3 trillion, which would be impossible to pay since it exceeds the entire GDP of Great Britain. The railways, for example, was a big colonial scam. British shareholders made an absurdly high return on capital. Each mile of Indian railway construction in 1850s and 1860s cost an average of £18,000 as against the dollar equivalent of £2,000 in the United States at the same time. But in reality, the railways were less of a mission to help the Indian people than a well-calculated move to reap further economic benefits for the British. Whatever it is they did for India, they ensured India paid for it in excess, and at the end of it all, they went home to enjoy their retirements in damp little cottages with Indian names, pensions supplied by Indian taxpayers. If you add up what India, Pakistan and Bangladesh have lost because of British rule and continue to lose with every passing year and compare it with the Kohinoor, the diamond would be a mere peanut. The Kohinoor should remind Indians that they became enslaved because they were divided, and they should say never again.
सदियों तक इस देश में बच्चों रही हुकूमत वैरों की, अभी तलक हम सबके मुंह पर धूल है उनके पैरों की। लड़वाओ और राज करो ये उन लोगों की हिकमत थी, उन लोगों की चाल में आना हम लोगों की जिल्लत थी। ये जो बैर है एक दूजे से, ये जो फूट और रंजिश है, उन्हीं विदेशी आकाओं की सोची समझी बख्शिश है अपने वतन में।
Has such profound knowledge of spirituality that is capable of transforming lives permanently. Yet we have not valued and honored our own heritage and spiritual legacy that we have in our country. We are sitting on top of a golden treasure, yet we have been ignorant about it. We look down upon it rather than upholding it with honor and promoting it. The youth have to come forward and work towards saving this country, her religion and spirituality, her culture and heritage.
देश में आजादी है, अब क्यों जनता फरियादी है। कब जाएगा दौर पुराना, कब आएगा नया जमाना।
सदियों की भूख और बेकारी क्या एक दिन में जाएगी, इस उजड़े गुलशन पर रंगत आते आते आएगी। ये जो नए मंसूबे हैं और ये जो नई तामीरें हैं, आने वाले दौर की कुछ धुंधली धुंधली तस्वीरें हैं। तुम ही रंग भरोगे इनमें, तुम ही ने चमकाओगे, नवयुग आप नहीं आएगा, नवयुग आप नहीं आएगा, नवयुग को तुम लाओगे।